Thank you for listening to the BJJ Brick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends, to episode 137 of the BJJ Brick Podcast. I'm Gary, and I'm here with my partner in crime, my co-host, my rolling partner, armbar specialist, Byron Jabara. How are you doing today, Byron?
Gary, I'm doing great. All the fancy introduction is really perked me up there, Gary. That's quite the introduction. I didn't anticipate that. I don't have anything to say nice about you. the best announcer.
Well, I think
on the
I like
show.
you a little bit better than you like me. So
Oh man, kind of starting off with the man crush already. In the
I've had that for years.
Oh man, who
we got an awesome show today. I know y'all listened to part one of Travis Stevens last week, and so we got a double dose. Today is part two of Travis Stevens, so he's going to share some more knowledge with us. So stay tuned for the interview part of the show.
Yep, and if they did miss part one, it's really easy to do. Absolutely, free, of course, but just check it out on the website there or wherever you're downloading podcasts. Go back and download one more. He was on the USA Olympic team for Judo twice, so he knows what he's doing as far as Judo goes, and he has a BJJ black belt, so he also definitely knows what's going on the Jiu-Jitsu mats as well. So a lot of good information coming to you guys today.
Yep. How do you like that for a combination? An Olympic Judo person along with a BJJ black belt. That would not be a fun guy to get on the mat with. First, you're going to get thrown, and as soon as you hit the mat, you're going to get submitted. So it's going to be tough if you get on the mat with Travis.
I think it'd be good on the mat, but probably a little less on the, in the dark alley or in the bar or wherever. Things might go bad.
Yeah, definitely it would go bad.
That's
never fun to get thrown on your head in a dark alley.
That's true, Gary.
Or on a padded mat.
Yeah, that some where we're at here, we do have a few padded mats in dark alleys, and there's usually some guy waiting to throw you.
I normally do carry mats with me when I'm going downtown or in sketchy areas. In case anybody wants to throw down, I'll put the mats out, and that way we won't get hurt. You're
such a gentleman, Gary. That's one thing that a lot of people don't understand about you. You're happy to, it's the old-fashioned gentleman style. Like, I challenge you to a duel, and somebody might slap you with the glove and challenge you to a duel, and you'll say, "That's fine," and you'll go get your mats, and it's on.
It's on, like Donkey Kong.
Yes, it is. Gary, we've got a fun quote today. It was from Nina Dobrev. I believe she's an actress. I typed her up, and it looks like she's quite the talented actress there in several films. And her quote for today is, "Even though you're growing up, you should never stop having fun." And that to me, I think one of the biggest outlets for a lot of us listening today, our fun outlet, is large in part Jiu-Jitsu, Gary.
Yeah, and I was talking to Byron about this before the show goes on, and really to me, Jiu-Jitsu is like going out and playing a game of basketball with my friends. I mean, all my friends train it. I meet my friends at the gym. We're training. We're smiling. I don't get as crazy as some people. I know some people take it really serious, going for world championships and stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm more on the other side. I'm the fun, friendly guy who likes to roll. And it really is. It's like a big kid's play zone for me. It's like I'm going to a daycare when you drop me off at the gym.
Minus the constant smell of urine.
Yeah, and the cauliflower ears.
Add the cauliflower ear, minus the urine smell, and you've got Jiu-Jitsu with Gary.
Well, I have rolled with some guys who have the urine smell. We won't name any names.
Yeah, I apologize for that, and it kind of is related to the article of the week. But I didn't know if we were going to bring that up on air, Gary, but I guess we did. Whoops.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So, Gary, what is our article of the week here? Where maybe I would smell like urine by the end of it.
Well, I'm telling you, our article of the week, it's actually a doctor, but we're not going to talk about urine. This week we have an article from Yahoo Sports, which I can't say we've grabbed one out of there before, but we have an article. It's called Tap or Nap, BJJ Chokes from a Doctor's Perspective. And the nice thing about this is we're talking to Dr. Warren Lang. He's a longtime BJJ practitioner. He's a gym owner, and he's also one vice president of medical services. So, here's a guy who does it, who owns a gym, and is a doctor. So he's just basically talking about what happens when you do get choked, and the difference between choking and a strangulation. And we have so many different types of choke. The rear naked choke, the arm triangle choke, the Bravo choke, cross choke, triangle choke, and the list goes on and on again. And he goes on to explain the differences between a choke and a strangulation. And he's like, choking is the act of airway blockage, and he gives some examples of choking, like drowning, choking on food. And but what he says is, we may call them chokes, but he says chokes in grappling or MMA are really strangulations. And he goes on to define strangulations, and he says it's a compression of the neck that may lead to unconsciousness or death by causing increasingly hypoxic state in the brain. So basically, you're just not letting blood get to the brain, and when the blood doesn't get there, basically that lack of blood to the brain is gonna make you pass out.
So technically, it should be called a triangle strangulation or a rear naked strangulation. Or
I am now going to start calling them that.
I probably will stick with the word choke. That's kind of the what's accepted in our culture. But technically, a strangulation has to do with blood or compression of the neck, and choke is a problem with your airway, like you said, food or something like that in there, and you're choking. So that's interesting, but that's not even the main part that we take away from the article, is it, Gary?
No, and this is another thing I did not know. And he talks about what to do when somebody is choked unconscious. And most of us, well, maybe not. Maybe you guys are on top of the times, which I wasn't. I've always been that guy. Yeah, I've always been the guy who lifts people's legs. I've seen it. I've been told to do that. And he says that there's a name for this position. It's called the Trendelenburg position. So I probably butchered the name, but he said that's not common practice anymore. He says in the past that position, was used, and the reasoning was it would help maintain blood flow to the brain. But research has shown this to be counterproductive, and now they have a new position that you're supposed to do. They call it the recovery position. So next time somebody falls asleep due to a strangulation, a rear naked strangulation or a triangle strangulation, turn them to their side. Make sure nothing's blocking the airway. So if they do have a mouthpiece in, take that out. And it doesn't say it in this article, but Byron is, as we all have talked about, he's a firefighter, paramedic. And he was telling me, too, that top leg, to pull that out like a 90-degree angle. And that's so he doesn't roll over onto his stomach. The biggest thing we're doing is trying to prevent. We do not want somebody to throw up while they're on their back. There's a good chance they could choke, not strangle, choke on that. So we definitely want to get them to this recovery position. Yeah,
it's a great position. People have been doing this for a long time. One of the big concerns is like somebody might start to vomit, and if they're unconscious, they'll choke on that, and that could be very bad. That could even lead to death. And this position just definitely keeps that from happening, and it stabilizes them from really rolling around. So you take that top leg, so they're laying on their side, like on their hip. So if I'm laying on my left hip, you take my right leg and pull my knee out about 90 degrees. And then you could also take my right hand and put it underneath my head and rest it on my arm that's also up. The best way will be to Google recovery position if you want to see this. And you can leave them alone, and they will eventually come to. That's what it's designed for. It's designed to have somebody who can't really take care of themselves. Just rest there safely. If they're going to move, they can't fall back because their leg is counterbalancing, and they can't fall forward because their leg is like a kickstand. And so as long as they're not using their muscles, aka they're unconscious and they can't really do much, they'll basically stay here until they wake up. And he, like the article mentions, their heart's beating, they're breathing, they just need the blood back in the oxygen into the brain. So it's not recommended that you lift the legs anymore, sending like a change in blood pressure really, and a bunch of blood to the head. Just put them in this recovery position, and they'll wake up pretty quick, and it doesn't like shock the system, I'd imagine.
Yep. So I tell you, this was one article I really learned a lot, and we really appreciate Dr. Wang for writing this article. We'll put a link to it, and as the very last paragraph says from Dr. Wang, train hard, train smart, and stay safe. Can't have any better words than that while we're training.
So let's go back a little bit more about the strangulation versus choke thing. I kind of like the maybe it sounds a little bit more harsh, the word strangulation versus choke, but maybe because we're just not used to it. But like with a gi, like a gi strangulation, to me it sounds cooler than like the no, like, you know what I mean? Using a cross grab strangulation choke or something like that, or a collar strangulation. That sounds pretty cool because it sounds like one of those movies where they would strangle him with something. I don't know.
Yeah, and I was thinking about that when we first started talking about the article, the strangulation versus choke. And choke does sound like more of a PC term, really. It doesn't sound as bad. I guess maybe because you can choke on a piece of food. Strangulation kind of almost seems like we only hear about that when somebody was murdered.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that's why we called it choke versus strangulation. But like I said, I really am going to start calling these, the triangle strangulation, the rear naked strangulation. So I am going to change my wording just to see people's reaction for a little while.
You got style.
And who knows?
Gary.
Maybe it'll stick.
Well, it could always stick with just you. I mean, it doesn't matter if anybody else adopts it or not, but as long as you keep doing it, it's stuck.
Yeah, and, some acronyms may have to change. We've had our buddy Brian Marvin on, and he goes by the ABC philosophy, always be choking. And, I am now going to have to switch that to ABS, always be strangulating.
Oh.
Doesn't sound as cool.
Well, it kind of reminds me of the analog brake system.
Yep. Well, analog brake system is for safety, and always be choking is to dominate your opponent and win.
It'll always be strangling.
So I guess they don't go together.
It'll work itself out, Gary.
Yeah, that's true.
Definitely, you think of a strangulation, there's another person involved, and that does kind of amp the feelings about the word. But it's kind of interesting to think of.
Yep. I never thought of that. I just assumed everything was a joke, but it was a good article. So
another thing, Gary, you ever been strangled unconscious?
I do not think I have been. I think I've always been a guy who tapped early. I've been very close to it, but I don't remember if I have been. I don't think I have been. I know you have been.
I got put out twice in about a 6-month period. Since grappling from 2002, I coasted like 13 years and didn't get choked out by anybody, like unconscious, just tap. And I've definitely, been very dizzy and lost and had some numbness in my, parts of my body, but I always was able to tap and to just like, oh man. But one time I was a brown belt rolling with a fairly new guy who was pretty big, and he had been like drilling his triangle chokes, and I didn't know that. It's been a few months since I rolled with him. And he slept on a triangle. I'm like, hey, that's a pretty good setup. And next thing I know, he's waking me up. And then
did he put you in the recovery position?
No, he didn't know. I don't think he knew about lifting the legs or or the recovery position. He just was like, you all right, man? And it's confusing being choked out. And then the other time, I was on the mat with Jake Fox, and he was demonstrating something, and he goes, "Can you get out?" And I thought that I could get out. And I mean, it wasn't like it didn't feel like a super tight choke, and I felt like I had a decent position. And I started to kind of squirm into fight. And next thing I know is he's asking me, did I go out? And I'm like, nah, but I kind of just want to rest.
I'm going to tell a funny story about Byron. we had been training about 6 months, and we used to have this really, really big guy in our class who kind of bullied Byron and I around and would just beat us up with strength. And he was probably, a good 80 to 90 pounds heavier than us. And he was always talking about how there was no way you could rear naked choke him because he was so strong. He would just pull your not the choking arm, but the other arm. He would pull it over his shoulder and tap you with it, just with brute strength. And he was bragging how nobody could choke him. And Byron stood up to the Jolly Green Giant and said, hey, let me lock rear naked choke in and you can try it. I'll never forget. Byron locked that rear naked choke in. Little skinny Byron, half the size of this guy. And I just remember his face was turning purple. He was about ready to go to sleep. But Byron was a nice guy and let him out, or I don't know if Byron was being nice to let him out or realizing what was going to happen the next time Byron get on the mat with him, how much he was going to pay, how much payback there was going to be. But I just remember laughing. I just thought it was so funny watching this guy turn purple and look all helpless, and especially after all the bullying he did to us.
Yeah, I do remember this. You don't remember all the little weird situations on the mat, but it was self-preservation, Gary. I didn't want to get any repercussions.
I figured that's why you let him out. Yeah. I know we haven't really talked much about it, but that guy was the type of guy, even if you got a position on him, you knew you were going to pay for it. So, but the cool thing is I know he knows in his mind that he wasn't going to get out of that. Byron let him save face, and Byron preserved his body. So Byron actually won because he used his brain.
There we go. And I'm not so much worried about saving my own face because it's already, it's too late, Gary.
Yeah, it's already beat up. Yeah, too beat up. But, hey, at least you're still on the mat. That's what counts.
True. Yep. Before we do the interview, Gary, I want to remind people that we do kind of have a side show going on. It's called BJJ Brick Q&A. And basically, the people who send us questions via email, we used to just email back and forth and kind of do that sort of thing. But now we're answering them on a video. So let's say Gary asked me a question about, I don't know, should I eat before I train? I'll do my best to answer it, or get somebody who can. Maybe I'll get Gary on one of these days. And then we'll air that on the YouTube channel. And then next time somebody emails me the same question, I'll say, here's our video about it. Boom, little library of questions and answers that is going to be building there. So if you go to the website, you can find lots of links to it. It's just BJJ Brick Q&A. So if you have a question you want us to answer, send it our way, bjjbrick@gmail.com.
Or send us a message on our Facebook page. And also, talking about our email, definitely get on our email list. We'll send you out a link to the show each and every week. That way you'll never miss a show. bjjbrick@gmail.com. If you have any questions, send it to us there. But check out the link for our email list. Like we've said before, we don't spam your inbox there. We're just trying to get our show out to each and every week, so that way you'll never forget it.
There we go, Gary. We've kept the people away from Travis Stevens, I think, long enough. It's time to air our interview. What do you think, buddy?
Yep, I think we should let Travis out of the cage so he can throw people and submit people. So let's get on to Travis.
He is the most interesting grappler in the world.
He taught Tyler Durden how to make soap just because they had extra supplies. He once got a mat burn. It ended up causing a 3-alarm fire. When he pulls guard, the ref gives him 2 points. If you watch his competition footage, you will see Mr. Miyagi looking at him with approval.
I don't always listen to podcasts, but when I do, I prefer the BJJ Brick podcast. Stay listening, my friends.
A couple of things that you've mentioned about being an Olympic athlete, and then what do you do after that? And then, as a judo person, it's really hard because you're not going through school and doing that sort of thing to prepare yourself for that second, third of your life. And then also, judo schools don't make a lot of money. Do you think that we would have better quality judo if it was just like the standard, I guess, or somehow people expected to pay more money for judo? Maybe the people who had a career at competing would look at, well, I could open up a school and support a family. I'm not going to get rich doing this, but I could at least move on with my life and live a comfortable lifestyle by having a school. Does that not really happen in judo because there's not the money there with it?
Yeah, that's a definite yes, for sure. We have Olympians and team members for years that just aren't involved in the sports. Like Adam Wheeler's a good example of, you know what, he just wants to stay competitive, and jiu-jitsu has that outlet. And there's no real wrestling outlet for people who want to just wrestle locally. Like we here in Massachusetts have no like senior wrestling program. They're all no-gi jiu-jitsu guys or ex-wrestlers running programs out of jiu-jitsu academies, which is what you see a lot of judo people doing instead of taking it upon themselves to open up their own schools and grow their own sports. Wrestling is just lucky enough to have it in all the schools and all the colleges, where judo doesn't have that. And you see a lot of like ex-judo guys teaching for almost free to all the jiu-jitsu students and trying to grow a program that way.
And it's really just a cultural thing that it's not, that you're expected to share your judo almost freely, opposed to just, is that what it is? It's a cultural barrier maybe, or expectations of what they think they have on them?
You could call it a lot of things. Maybe it's just, well, that's the way he's doing it, so that's the way I'm going to do it, or that's how I grew up doing it, so that's how it must be done. Maybe it's a cultural thing where we just, because it's always been free, it must have to be free. Maybe it's because it's free, we draw people who aren't willing to take the risk in opening up their own schools. It's like I've actually sat down with clubs that are successful and like shown them the numbers of like, look, you have this many students. I know you don't want to get paid, but you have 10 people going to junior nationals. If you charge $45 a month and had your own building and paid $3,000 a month in rent, had one mat area, your entire junior national team would go for free. And you don't have to take a paycheck. And they're like, oh, but the responsibility for this and that, and it almost shies them away. Instead of like embracing the culture of jiu-jitsu, like jiu-jitsu guys do, saying, you know what, I love this sport so much that if I have to live out of my academy, then that's what I'm going to do, because it truly makes me happy. And most of them don't have that. They would rather work 8 hours a day and teach 2 hours a day and do it for free. But it really hinders the growth of our sport in this country.
In other places and countries in the world, is judo supported by the government there, or how is that different from the United States?
Judo is the second most popular sport in the world. You have countries like France, Germany. Germany is a city-wide sponsorship where if you go to school and you get certified and you get the curriculum and pass all your tests to be a judo coach, you're employed by your city to teach judo in that city, and they provide the building and the mats. France is big corporations, have big teams. Japan, colleges, schools, company teams that pay athletes, after their college careers just to do judo for the company on their behalf, to represent them in competitions. It's an actual program and a system where people fund it. And the students fund it by paying memberships, paying yearly dues to the higher federations. They just have their act together. They've moved past we're going to do it for free.
So they're both getting money from the students and money from government organizations and big companies as well.
And cities.
Okay, looking long-term at, I guess, United States Judo, Jiu-Jitsu, do you think we're likely to move either one of these martial arts into that direction?
It would take some business-savvy people in the sport to actually invest something other than money to actually grow it. The problem with growing jiu-jitsu is you don't represent anything other than your club. So where judo, we represent a country. So in Germany, for example, like I fight professionally for a team in Germany called TSV Abensburg. And Abensburg pays the coaches and the people there to have a judo facility. They fund the team. They pay us. And what happens is every time we fly out there, there's more commerce in the city. So the city actually makes money every time there's a judo event because people come in to see judo. Just like people drive into Boston to watch the Celtics play. Boston, the city, makes more money having a professional team there. And it's going to take somebody with some business savvy skills to get jiu-jitsu to work more as a community than as an individual club basis if it's going to grow as a sport. Like right now, people are always talking about jiu-jitsu being in the Olympics, but you have to represent a country, not a team. So how do you plan on putting yourself in the Olympics when you won't compete against another guy from your association who's from another country? Is it going to come down to like maybe GF team represents Brazil and Team Atos represents USA and Gracie Baja represents Europe? I don't know. But it's going to take somebody for jiu-jitsu to actually try to bring the sport together from a business side to grow it and get it into the Olympics. And for judo, it's going to take somebody putting the community on the same page of, hey, you guys are missing a lot of athlete potentials by not charging because you're not getting the best athletes in the sport when they're young, because those athletes are going to pay, $1,500 to play soccer. And the parent's going to go, look, I just paid $1,500 for you to play soccer. You're not going to judo tonight because it's free. You're going to go play soccer.
A lot covered there, and I think you made a lot of interesting points. One of the topics you brought up was jiu-jitsu in the Olympics. Besides what you've already mentioned, what do you think some of the biggest hurdles would be to get jiu-jitsu into the Olympics? Or do you think it would be a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't think it's something we're ever going to see in our lifetime. I think jiu-jitsu is too small of a sport. It doesn't have the infrastructure to be an Olympic sport. Like, I don't follow jiu-jitsu like indefinitely. Like, I don't follow results. Like, I watch some highlights on like my Facebook page and things like that. But let's take that, what was it? The UAE Pro tournament, right? That just happened. Could you name me 10 countries that fought in that with players that actually won matches at black belt? That's how the Olympic Committee and the IOC value sport. They need an actual organization that works with like the United States that says, we are going to build jiu-jitsu in the United States and we are going to fund athletes in the United States. And then there needs to be that same matching organization in Brazil, in Mexico, in Venezuela, in Denmark, in Finland, in Sweden, in Germany, in France, that actually work to just grow the sport in their specific countries, not based on team morale. Like, why a guy who trains at Atos in San Diego doesn't fight a guy who trains at Atos in Rio makes no sense to me as a judo guy.
Yeah.
If I've entered the World Championships, there is no way I'm making the finals and not fighting the guy in front of me.
Yeah, I could see that affecting motivation and in the Olympic Committee looking at things about, like, the gentleman's agreement and not understanding that as well. That to work that hard to get so close and to just agree on who wins is a lot of times pretty hard to as a spectator, hard to watch too.
Well, you can't grow the sport with things like that going on. Like, what if, like, what was it, the World Championships at that LA place, the Pyramid place, where I think 1 year, like 2 years ago, there was like 5 out of like 14 finals were like walkovers, where they just agreed that the other person was going to win. And it's like, what if Jiu-Jitsu and the IBJJF said, you know what, we're going to pay ESPN $500,000 for 1 hour time slot where we're going to highlight this. And now half your content is walking out there with people just doing handshake deals. You can't grow the sport with that.
Yeah.
Just like you can't grow the sport by only saying, well, why don't you just show my earlier matches? For the same reason why more people tune into the Super Bowl than regular season games. Because it's that final thing we all care about. More people sign on to the Olympics to watch USA win a gold medal than they do to make it out of the first round.
Yeah, and these are all issues that need to be addressed. I think a lot of times with a team closing out a division, that could be addressed with not putting 2 people in the same team in a division. Problem solved. You wouldn't have 2 American athletes in the same bracket and end up, if like I said, that happened, they could be for first place, but just don't do it. And the 2 guys that train together all the time don't have to face each other and worry about training tomorrow and worry about when they're training today what we're going to be doing when we're competing. Just don't put them in the same division. I guess what you get, maybe a team or each country gets 1 spot and pick who you're going to put in there.
Yeah, I don't understand it, and I've never been able to figure it out. I've quit trying to figure it out because I just accepted I don't understand it. Because the guys at Henzo's, like you saw Gary Tonin and Eddie Cummins fight it out at EBI. Because if we're from the same team, even though those guys train together, and we have the agreement within the Henzo Association, like, hey, if our guys meet, you know what? We don't coach. We all sit back and watch, and we let the players fight it out. Nobody helps out. Just let them do their thing. Because you know what? You could fight matches 100 times over, and the matches could go 50-50. Maybe today you win. Maybe next time I win. It's who's the best today. That's all the world's is.
Yeah, and in
judo, we don't have that.
That's got to be nice. Travis, we've talked about a lot of stuff today. I do want to get some advice from you for the newer students out there. Travis, I would like to know what you were like as a blue belt, because you spent so much time in judo, and a lot of people at that blue belt level I imagine you're still trying to make your judo work for your jiu-jitsu maybe, or maybe you weren't, but I just want to know like what you were experiencing as a blue belt and what you were doing and trying out.
Never was a blue belt.
You went right to purple?
Yeah, white to purple.
And what was that like?
It was a lot of a wow factor. Jiu-jitsu is so much different than judo, where if you actually listen, if you have a good instructor, first of all, you got to state that, because there are some instructors out there who don't know what they're talking about. And I can see that just when I watch like Instagram clips and YouTube clips. When you have a good instructor who knows how to teach and knows the actual ins and outs of certain positions that they're teaching, when they show you something, it actually works. And it doesn't matter if it's a black belt, a white belt, a blue belt. What he shows you legitimately works. The reason why I was so successful so fast was I knew the difference between what was successful and what was a failure. And an example I can give is, let's say, like a scissor sweep, for example, right? Something super basic, every white belt learns, but it's not something people ever really pull off. But that doesn't necessarily make it a failure. When I first started doing jiu-jitsu, that was one of the first sweeps I had, was just a basic scissor sweep. And it didn't matter if it was a black belt or white belt. If I did everything fundamentally correct that he told me to do, and I didn't try to think about, oh, but he's doing this, or what if he does that, and try to anticipate the reaction to the move, then the move would actually work. If I just focused on the basic principles of what I was trying to accomplish. And when he would fall to his hip, that was a win to me. Because I understand from judo that you're not always going to throw somebody for ippon. You're not always going to throw somebody for a score. A lot of times the best techniques you have are the ones that make your opponent fearful of the technique. And I hadn't learned how to set up a triangle from a scissor sweep yet. But once I came to class 2 and the guy came over and he says, hey, when you do your scissor sweep and he builds back up, block the triangle. Then it was like I was hitting every white belt, every blue belt, every purple belt, just scissor sweep triangle, scissor sweep triangle. And then when I realized that they would defend the triangle, class 3 is when he pulls his head out, go to Umapalata. Okay, well, and then you start building on that curriculum of, that building process of learning how to just keep that flow going in jiu-jitsu where you can just constantly be attacking. Where a lot of blue belts tend to forget about the basic principles of a move. And we'll go back to the scissor sweep where maybe he gets the sweep and lands in mount the first time. And then the second time, he's like, he's just knocking the guy down to his hip. Or maybe he's just knocking the guy off balance. And he doesn't know about steps 2 and 3. He's going to start making stuff up to try to get it to work to land in that mount, instead of realizing that the whole point of the thing is to either get into mount or open up option B and C, which is later on down the road in class. So I never tried to make stuff up. If it wasn't shown to me, I didn't do it. And if it wasn't shown to me at jiu-jitsu class, I didn't do it at jiu-jitsu. Because I had known some things in Newaza and the stand-up stuff. But my first stand-up technique was a cross-collar grip to an X-guard pull. And it worked like a charm. I could do it to anyone. The problem is I didn't know what to do from X-guard. But it doesn't mean I couldn't get there. And it was realizing what were the wins versus the losses that really let me proceed to that purple belt really quickly.
It seems like you had a great idea mentally about what was a win. You didn't necessarily sweep the person every time, but if you got them to kind of fall over on their hip, that was good. That was a win. That was better than not getting them to fall on their hip. You're getting to X guard is great.
There's counters for counters. And you know what? If it's good enough to get a reaction, maybe that's the move. That's its purpose in my game, is just to get you to react. And that goes back to the grip breaking thing we were talking about earlier where, hey, I'm going to put my hands in such a position that you have to react to it instead of just taking your grips off. And I remember Henzo giving me that lesson after class when I was getting ready for Copa Podio, because I was breaking grips all the time and grip fighting a lot because that's what we do in judo. And he was like, you need to calm down and just put your hands in positions where he has to move around you instead of just fighting head-to-head all the time. Because you're not going to, as a blue belt or as a purple belt, you're not necessarily going to sweep everybody who's a rank higher than you. But that doesn't mean your sweep's not good enough to keep doing the thing right, because it's going to take probably years to develop any move good enough to get the best in the world with it. You know, there's certain muscles you need to do a scissor sweep. And if you're working out with the black belt and all of a sudden you do a scissor sweep and he gets knocked off balance, you probably would have had a white belt with it completely. And that was a good muscle strengthening exercise that if you kept doing that for the next year, you'd probably sweep everyone in the world with it. But you have to keep doing it correctly and not trying to make up different grips or different sweeping patterns just to try to knock the guy over every time you do it.
I think we've all been there. Trying something, it ultimately it doesn't work. But really, some part of it worked, and accept that as, well, maybe this is what it is going to do for me now. I can't sweep everybody with this. Like, I used to consider my triangle the setup. If I got to be where they had one arm in and one arm out, that was a success, because I couldn't finish everybody. But I could surely try to set up the triangle and go from there. It just kind of, it's not really lowering your standards, just seeing what you could get and working from that position or that area.
Yeah, like I try to tell my white belts two things. One, and we'll work with like that triangle position you were talking about. One, if you can get to a top lock position where you have that triangle, but maybe you're crossed at the ankles and not like foot behind knee, that should be like a guaranteed win. Because if you can always get there, there's so many different ways to finish that you should be able to find a way to win. You may not know it, but there's a way to win. And then if you have your foot, like I have my white belts, once they get to that top lock and they can actually set the triangle, rather than holding on to that triangle for like 30, 40 seconds, work on your transitions. Like work on going to the 3/4 Juji, work on going to the Kimura, work on actually sweeping him into mount while maintaining the triangle. And yeah, you're going to lose it probably the first 50 times, but the more you put yourself there, the quicker your transition comes, the stronger your leg grip's going to get, rather than just getting to like those stall positions where I have you in a triangle and a top lock, and I know you're defending it, but we're going to sit here for the next 2.5 minutes, and eventually you might tap. Nobody's really benefiting from that. I'd rather see my white belts go for a transition and lose it and make their transitions faster over time, and they can learn where people are going to maybe counter that escape, than work on, I have you in a top lock and you can't get out.
Yeah,
which is a different mentality.
Travis, a lot of students aren't serious athletes. We've mentioned these people before, and that's great that we're able to come in here and just train and enjoy jiu-jitsu. But we all want to get better. If somebody you're training with has a busy schedule, they're able to get in 1, 2, maybe 3 times at most in a week. What advice do you have to them to make the most out of their training sessions and their time on the mat?
Two things. Never watch YouTube. Never watch Instagram or social media videos. You can't learn from it. You're not at a high enough level where you have an understanding of a situation that makes sense. And you're probably not coordinated enough as an athlete to bend in those ways or move in those ways, or you're hitting that realm of you're making movements up just to try to mimic the video. And the best way I can describe that is I can watch Tiger Woods hit a driver 330 yards, but that doesn't mean I see it and I can go do it. And it's that same concept. Like, yeah, I see the Meow doing the Berimbolo and it makes sense and I can see it working and I see him doing it. I'm going to go do a Berimbolo. You don't understand the position well enough, or have the flexibility or the movement, or maybe your partner, which is another big one, isn't doing the things right that he needs to be doing that makes that move successful. So that's going to be the first thing, is just shutting off all the crap from social media that you see with people just trying to get likes on Instagram with all their fancy 5-foot switches to the back, and just do what your instructor says. Roger Gracie is one of the best in the world, and he does basic jiu-jitsu. Basic stuff. Like the best in the world all shut down that fancy stuff.
I think that goes back to something you said earlier when you were, I think you were white belt and talking about getting your purple belt so quick or skipping the blue belt, is that you did only the techniques that your instructor told you to do. You didn't make up a bunch of stuff. You didn't leave that area. You did what what you were taught, and that helps you become really good at those techniques. Same thing, I guess, is similar is to going to class, learning, and then going home and watching YouTube forever, and then trying to do that stuff instead of focusing on what your instructor is trying to help you with.
Yeah. You know, as an instructor, and I called my students out on it. I go, you watched YouTube, didn't you? And they go, yeah, I did. I saw it on YouTube. And I go, yeah, that's what I thought. And then now, my entire teaching or his drilling time, and I call drilling time going live because that's his option to actually work on what we've been working on in class in a live scenario. He chose to now try to make something up based on memory from a YouTube video. It's not like he's at home drilling with a qualified instructor on how to do a berimbolo or how to do an inverted triangle. He's just getting his guard passed every time and can't figure out why. And now I have to take the time out of my class to show him why, and he's never going to have the time to really work on it because his only time to come to class are those 3 times a week where we're never going to go over that.
Yeah, it's hard to do without that quality instruction of the person who's on the mat with you right there. And versus the YouTube video, the person in the video doesn't know you. It's not geared towards you. If you and I are training and you pass my guard a certain way, and I say, how do I prevent that? You give me advice that's specific to my game. That is like geared right towards me. There's not a video. There's a million videos on YouTube. There's not one online that could help me the way you just would have with that 2 or 3 tips of how to clean up my guard to make it not so easy to pass. And I think
Here's
that students
my
overlook
biggest
that.
problem with jiu-jitsu guys, and kind of basing on that topic of what you just said of something very specific to me. And this is what happens when you have like an unqualified coach or people who don't really understand jiu-jitsu. Like if you were to ask like a purple belt a question, or I hate to say it, black belts questions that don't know what they're doing, or they don't understand coaching. If I pass your guard in a certain way, they may show you like a guard recovery technique, correct? Like that would be a common answer.
Yeah.
But as a coach, I would go back a step and say, this is why your guard's not working. Your guard should never get passed. Your guard's getting passed because something you're doing is fundamentally wrong, which is allowing your partner to capitalize on it. Whether your knees are too close together, whether your foot's not on the hip, whether your de la hiva's not in the right place, like something you're doing is allowing him to just walk right past you. So it's not so much about what you do after, but we're going to take a step back and fix your problem before so that you can be offensive from your guard rather than recovering your guard. And then there's guard recovery things later on down the road, but when I'm working with you specifically on helping you, I'm going to work on why it's getting passed, because it's not just me passing it. It's the brown belt passing it. It's the other white belts passing it, because it's a flaw in your actual game. I don't train people to beat the world champions or beat the high-level black belts. Like, you should be fundamentally sound enough to where it works against everybody, because your feet are in the right place, your hands are in the right place, you're moving in the right directions, instead of just flailing your legs around, hoping that you get a lasso in or hoping he messes up and you do a triangle.
Yeah, and that I think we're agreeing here that when you give me that advice, not how to not get my guard passed, but what I'm doing wrong and why my guard isn't working, that's still advice that I can't get on YouTube from anybody. I mean,
yeah, there's that. There's what people call like invisible jiu-jitsu or invisible judo. Like, you can't see where, like, pressure's applied in a pressure passing system online. I could tell you, but until you felt it and, like, you understand it, like, it's really hard to communicate that with people. And, like, I have a black belt that I work with, like, daily on pressure passing, and I'm like, you have no pressure. And he goes, but I'm laying on you. And I go, and I don't feel anything. I don't feel weight. You're not driving. You're not pulling. You're not doing something. I know it looks like the DVD or the thing you saw on YouTube, but I don't feel anything. I'm not threatened. And I can just hang out. But it's those types of details that, like, the world champions can teach, but you can't pick up off YouTube, no matter how much they tell you.
Yeah. I mean, is there, in your opinion, a place for going to YouTube and learning from that?
There's a place for a guy like myself or like other people who are at a high enough level to understand the concepts of jiu-jitsu. There's a lot of times, and I would love to pull up a video right now and just rip it apart. Like, I see guys like, oh, I'm going to go like a double underpass, and then I'm going to lay on my back, and then I'm going to throw in my hook for like a weird, I don't know, crucifix-style position, and then we're going to roll, and then I'm going to switch my legs back, and then we're 30 seconds into this clip, and now he's on the guy's back. Like, what was your partner doing while you're going live the entire time you were doing all of those setups? Every time you have to make that switch of your feet, of your hands, gives your opponent an opportunity to get out. And that's all I see from those positions is, why didn't he just shrimp out? Why didn't he just push your leg off? Why is he laying there like a scarecrow? How did you really plan on making 5 switches? And you know what? Maybe the guys he trains with or they train with allow him to do that, but there's something fundamentally wrong in their defenses as to why that's happening. It's like playing chess. It's move for move. If I let the guy make more moves than me, I'm eventually going to lose. Just like a foot race. If we're racing to the end and he takes more steps than I do with the same reach, he's going to win the race. When you start following like basic principles, you start getting away from all of that. And if you don't have like the understanding of like seeing it, and I send videos to my students all the time, I'm like, I know this is going around, please don't watch it. We started a WhatsApp group just to make sure I could send them videos of don't do this, it'll never work. And then they send me videos going, what about this? And I go, no, or yes, or that's like a legitimate thing. He's just showing it in a different light. But it actually does work. Just to make sure that they can start seeing and understanding like and recognizing good versus bad.
There's so much out there, and there's so many very qualified people teaching it, and then there's some people who are just putting out what they can, and even some of the great practitioners don't do a great job of explaining it in a way that you could learn from a video.
Correct, because it's all felt. Not all of it, but if you don't have an understanding of like I understand how to create pressure while passing, so I can see like a levato pressure passing and go, oh, I get that. I could see that working. But I'm not the world's best person at berimbolo. I don't totally understand the position because it was so easy for me to defend that when I see a berimbolo, I go, but I would just do this. And then that whole position is kind of ex-nate. And there's always counters for counters. So that's not to say that the berimbolo doesn't work. It's just you don't always have to berimbolo to the back.
Yeah, it's. I guess it goes back to the same thing. Is when you do your scissor sweep and they fall to their side, that's okay. When they do the berimbolo and you counter it this way or you're off balance a little bit, that's okay too. It's just understanding what you want out of it.
Yeah, and it's understanding that like when you see that move that had like the berimbolo to the 5 leg switches to the mount back to the back, like at any point you actually decided to sweep him and just skip steps 3 through 5 is a win. That's okay. Like, you don't have to, like, if I do a berimbolo, I don't have to end up on your back. I just come up into guard 90% of the time because there's no need to fight for the back. Like, I am very comfortable just passing the guard and being in side control. Would I like to be on the back? Yeah. Am I going to fight tooth and nail and risk not getting the sweep to do it? No.
Do you have any sponsors you would like to mention?
I have the New York Athletic Club right now. They've been helping me out since, 2007, 2006. Fuji Sports has been with me since the start of my jiu-jitsu career. They sponsored me before I ever had my first event. And Mizuno's been with me for judo since the gi changes back in 2009. And I've stuck with them ever since. And I know a lot of gi companies out there have tried to get me away from Fuji and Mizuno, and it's not worth it. You know, there's brand loyalty. I like the products. I like the people who run the company. We work well together. And I don't plan on going anywhere, and I support their gear above all others. You know? What
is your favorite Fuji jiu-jitsu gi?
It would have to be the Nippon. Because I like the Japanese cotton. I like the softness. But for people with a more, like, budget-friendly gi, it would have to be the Sekai. Basically because I was the model, and it fits me like a suit jacket. That whole gi is tailored like a suit to me.
Nice.
So I can't really get away with it. I mean, if you watch my matches from Copa Podio when I fought Rodolfo, he was complaining that you can't grab it. Well, that's because it fits like a suit jacket. And that's like off the rack from Fuji, because I told them they need a tailored competition gi. It can't just be an everyday cut. It needs to be made for real athletes, real BJJ practitioners with an athletic build.
Excellent.
But for everyday wear, when I'm not training hard, I like the Super Raido. It's lightweight. It's got a competitive feel to it. That's my, like, teaching style gi.
Cool. You have a variety of gis you like. And I have the Sekai myself, and I love it.
Man, that's the best gi on the market to me. Like, you could talk about King's gis and, like, Venom gis and all these other ones that are, like, priced around, like, $200. But a Sekai for $169 with the tailored cut is far better, in my opinion. And I tried the other ones, like Shoyoroll tried to sponsor me. I didn't like the cut. Didn't fit right. I know they have all these different sizes. But I feel like people just wear it because they think it makes them look cool. And then they get used to that uncomfortable gi. And then they just stick with it. Because a gi is all about used to it. I remember when I first had to switch to Mizuno from my other sponsor because the IJF changed the gi rules, and I hated it. But once I got used to it and I figured out how I could move in the gi and like do all my grip breaking and grip fighting in the gi, now I love it and I can't wear anything else and wouldn't.
It's good to hear about your sponsors, and it's nice to hear that you're so loyal to them, and there's definitely reasons why you're loyal, and you explain that. What's the best way to somebody to keep up with you? Do you have a website or social media, or what's the best way?
I have a couple websites actually. Travis-Stevens.com is my blog, where you can find a lot of interesting topics and point views on like parents helping kids, coaching advice. You can actually write in and subscribe to emails and email me directly through there once you do to like get questions answered and things like that. I don't get to everyone's questions because some questions I can't answer legally. That's the easiest. Facebook is always around. My fan page is always easiest. I'm not always the one that responds to the Facebook stuff. I do have a marketing guy since I get in trouble on Facebook and social media for my voicing of opinions. But yeah, the website's probably the easiest. It goes directly to me and no one else.
Well, cool. And I'll put links to those. And I'm now intrigued as well. I recommend you go and like the Facebook page because occasionally he gets in a little bit of trouble, and that'll be entertaining to keep up with you there as well.
Almost got me suspended a couple months ago.
Oh, man. Do you have any closing thoughts or words you want to leave with the audience?
Make sure that you're getting everything you want from the club you're at, and don't be afraid to change locations to get what you want. jiu-jitsu is about your journey and expressing yourself. There's so many different options. If the berimbolo is your game and that's what you want, and you want nothing else out of jiu-jitsu except to have fun and like roll around, and your coach doesn't teach it, doesn't show it, find a guy that does. Like, learn to love the sport and enjoy the sport and perfect it the way you want to perfect it. And if you're at a place that like doesn't teach takedowns and you want to know takedowns, find a guy who does it. That would be my 2 cents for anyone who's starting out in the sport or is just starting to figure out like how they want to do jiu-jitsu, whether they want to be like a half guard player or a passer or a spider guard player. Find a guy that's really going to help you, because that's going to be where you're going to excel the best anyways, in an environment that you really truly enjoy being in.
All right. Well, thank you, Travis. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and just want to give you a big thanks for talking with the audience today.
Happy to do it.
Well, we'd like to thank Travis for taking the time out to talk to our guests or talk to our listeners. Travis was our guest, and he talked to our listeners. But, we appreciate it. He's, like I said, that's our second part. And I know I learned a lot, and I guarantee everybody out there in the audience picked something up from Travis also.
Yeah, really enjoyed talking with him and just learned a lot and enjoyed the process of learning from him.
Yeah. And, hey, make sure you check BJJ Brick out on social media. We always talk about Facebook. That's our easiest way to get in touch with us, our biggest way. But Byron's really been working on the YouTube channel. Like we said earlier, we've got the question and answer. So if you do have any questions, send it to us, bjjbrick@gmail.com. We'll get a little short segment up there on the YouTube page. But we're also on Twitter, so check us out on Twitter. We're on where else are we on, Byron?
I don't know. Twitter.
Yeah.
We got a Instagram.
No.
I don't know.
Reddit. Just check us out.
Yeah, I'm trying to post on there every episode on Reddit, and people seem to not hate us on this. That's good. I mean, it's a good community, but you always get sometimes mixed results in on forums online and stuff like that. So. But yeah, people have been supportive on Reddit, and so we're still doing that. And you could shoot comment on there; we'll see that as well. But I don't see that's the thing. Like the Facebook thing and the email is, we'll see it. The Facebook we'll see it usually within the hour. The email I usually see it within the day. Reddit I usually see it next time I post the next episode on there. I'm not real good at keeping up with stuff online. So,
yeah, it would be nice if we didn't have jobs and we could check it out a little bit more. But, real life and jiu-jitsu, we actually have to get our playtime in. We have to jiu-jitsu during the day and after evenings and weekends, so we have fun.
There we go. It's always good. Gary, I still have some gi patches laying around. We have... I guess there's two ways to get the gi patch. The traditional way is what we've been talking about for quite a while, is go into iTunes and leave us a review. Hopefully we've earned 5 stars. If you write us a funny review and you live in the United States, we'll be happy to mail you a BJJ Brick gi patch. You don't have to be a regular George Carlin on there, but if you make it kind of humorous or poke fun at us or tell us something kind of weird, maybe make up a little story about how things have changed for you since the podcast or whatever, something entertaining. And send us an email saying, hey, I just did this. I'll be happy to mail you the BJJ Brick gi patch for free.
Yeah, and try to use some lines from Byron's favorite movie, The Big Lebowski, in there. So if you do that, I guarantee you Byron will read it on the air.
There we go. That is a great movie, Gary. Are you a fan of it?
It was actually on the other day, and it made me think about you.
Oh, man.
There's that man crush again.
The man crush with the movie, though.
Oh, okay.
Just think about the dude who's out there doing his thing.
Yep,
he's out there
doing his thing.
He's lazy.
Yep. And Byron said there's 2 ways to get the patch, not the nicotine patch. I know some of you guys are looking to stop smoking, but we're not talking about the nicotine patch. We're talking about the gi patch. The second way is through Patreon. And we have now signed up with Patreon there, which is a website for content producers. And we have different levels of sponsorship where you can sponsor the show and We have a $1, a $2, and a $3 sponsorship per week. And so you can go onto Patreon. We have a link to it. But Byron, tell them about the different sponsorship levels and how to get the gi patch there.
Yeah, at the $3 level, don't think of it like you're buying the gi patch because it would be way overpriced. Just think of it as a token of appreciation for you supporting us. At $3, I will mail you a much larger gi patch. It's a 5-inch gi patch, and we are shipping those internationally. Speaking of which, Gary, I'm pumped. We mentioned this last week about the $3 level and the gi patch, and we had a guy named Craig from Australia signed up. I think it was on like the day or two after the podcast aired. I'm like, I was excited. Like somebody
that's awesome.
is supporting us at $3 an episode. That I didn't know if anybody would do that. So I got his patch in the mail, and it's on the way, and all the way to Australia. And then we have Alexander from Latvia, is also at the $3 level. So sending his gi patch out today or tomorrow. So excited to get support internationally. I thought maybe we'd send a little bit more out, in the United States or so, but so far it's been mailing the gi patches internationally has been good for us. So thanks for Alexander and Craig for the new support at this higher level, and it's just going to help us do more things with the show.
Yeah, and that's the whole key. It's so we can deliver a better show each and every week to all you guys. So, but definitely check it out, and thank you so much, Craig and Alexander. We really appreciate it.
Yep, and to make it all super easy, I don't want to talk about this for 35 minutes, but there's a video.
About 40.
About 40. There's a video in the show notes where I explain how it works and what we're hoping to do with it. So check it out if you're interested in supporting us. We really appreciate you. Even just going to watch the video. It means a lot. Next week, Gary, we got a good show coming up, buddy.
You have not told me who's coming on next week. And actually, this is just not part of the show that I'm trying to talk a little bit longer. I really don't know who's on next week, so I'm going to learn at the same time you guys do.
Ken Blackburn, the kettlebell expert, he talks about kettlebells. He talks about Jiu-Jitsu. It's kind of like the hybrid of the two. Of course, fitness and Jiu-Jitsu is always an important mix, and he's going to be bringing us lots of information. He's friends with us, with some of our local friends here, and got turned on to him and started talking with him about it. And I was like, dude, we got to get you on the show. And so it's just a great conversation with somebody who's a little bit over, not just pure jiu-jitsu all the time, but he definitely trains a lot of jiu-jitsu and is knowledgeable in that area, but has knowledge in these other ways of keeping fit. So it's definitely a fun conversation.
And that's what I like. A lot of times you have people who are fitness experts, but they may never have trained, wrestling or jiu-jitsu and don't totally understand all the aspects that we go through. And I did know you were interviewing Ken Blackburn, and I kind of had looked him up a little bit there too and found out a little bit about him and actually friended him on Facebook. But it's just cool when you have somebody who's a fitness expert, kettlebell expert, but is also really knowledgeable, been training jiu-jitsu for a long time. And I don't know, it seems like when I'm looking for fitness advice for, my game on the mat, I try to go towards those people. Sometimes I see that, people are very, very knowledgeable, but they just never have been on the mat, may not understand what I'm looking for. And that's why I like guys like Ken and listen to his advice.
Yep, we're all looking forward to that interview. The music is changing, Gary, and that tells us it is time for your audiobook of the week, which reminds me that we didn't talk about our audiobook, but that's okay. That was my bad.
Definitely. Yeah, we forgot to talk about the audiobook. Byron has an audiobook, Your First Year in BJJ. Basically, it's a roadmap to get you through your first year, which, we all know is the hardest year. It's the year that if you make it through, there's probably a really good chance you're going to stick with it. So we've been getting a lot of great reviews on this. It's Byron talking about different topics, anywhere from, competition to choosing the right school, stuff like that that's going to help you through your first year. 2.5 hours. So definitely check it out. It's only $11.99, and it's called Your First Year in BJJ.
There we go. Now, Gary, thanks for doing that, Gary. Picking up my slack here. I appreciate that.
Well,
Gary,
I was actually just taking time before we get to my fake audiobook.
As every week, Gary's working on a new audiobook, which he has no idea what it's about or what even the title of it is. And he's got to tell us a little bit about this book. Gary, your book this week is called Urine Smells and Cauliflower Ear, BJJ at the Daycare. And I'm really interested in Chapter 3, BJJ at the Jungle Gym. What's up with BJJ at the Jungle Gym in this new book you have coming out?
Well, my idea of this book came from, when my boy was younger. He's 8 now, but before school for 5 years, I'd drop him off at daycare. And, daycare is a tough place. I mean, it's like a public school. And, I mean, there's cliques, and even some of these kids form gangs. And I've seen it. I mean, I've seen how, some kids get picked on. And it's normally the kid with a dirty or saggy diaper. And that's where I got the name, the Urine Smells and Cauliflower Ear Chronicles. But, so if you had a saggy diaper or you looked like there was a lemonade stand, spilled lemonade underneath your chair, there's probably a problem. If you have a big wet spot, you're probably going to get picked on, and you're going to smell like urine. So what happens is a lot of times is during class, the kids can't pick on you because the teacher's normally there. So they wait till you're outside at the jungle gym. And that's where all the fights go down. I know I talked earlier about how I would always, if I go into sketchy areas, I would carry around a mat with me so we could do it safe. But the nice thing about jungle gym is normally at a daycare, they have a soft ground there, some kind of either rubberized ground, rubberized chips, or just wood chips or sand or small rocks, to keep the kids safe. And that's normally where it goes down.
Yeah.
But what Chapter 3 was, really going to show how to survive if you're the kid that gets picked on.
Gary,
and I mean,
are you saying that the rubber makes it safer?
The rubber definitely makes it safer. I mean, especially if you listen to this last episode with Travis Stevens, it's going to make it a little bit safer on the falls. If you get thrown.
Oh, on the falls.
I'm actually not necessarily working on throws in Chapter 3. Chapter 3, we're working on strangulations. So basically, I figure if you're getting picked on because of a soggy diaper and the urine smell, what better way to take out your opponent than a triangle strangulation? So that's what we're going to work on in Chapter 3. And the nice thing is, normally, if you go for a triangle strangulation, normally you're cutting off blood supply to the brain, which is the way to put the guy to sleep. And then once he's asleep, we're going to put him in the recovery position. But that's a whole nother article.
Wow.
But
covered here.
The nice thing about having, the urine smell and the soggy diaper, we now have 2 ways to put this guy to sleep. We can do it through the triangle strangulation, cutting off the blood supply, or just that urine smell. And a lot of people, that's really rough, and especially if you're in a triangle and your nose and mouth is, just getting a heaping full of urine, you can either choke on that or pass out from the smell. So really, that's a triple threat, as we like to call it in jiu-jitsu. So that's my favorite chapter.
That got graphic, and it was even more graphic than when I tried to make the little side joke about rubber keeping it safe. It went way worse than that, Gary. So, this book is going to be a good one. Very targeted market there.
It's marketed for kids 6 weeks old till before kindergarten. So definitely check it out.
Can they color it in, or is it going to be pictures at all words, or audiobook? What do you have coming out?
Well, it's just like one of my earlier books. It's going to be a pop-up book. And the bad thing is, like some of these pop-up books, this is real-life pop-up books. Like, it doesn't just pop up. It pops up and puts you in a triangle strangulation.
It smells like pee.
Yeah. We actually had to hire somebody to pee on a couple of the pages. Yeah.
Like a lot of authors will actually sign their book and then, send it that way.
I actually signed it in yellow pen.
Yeah.
Yep. To make it more realistic.
So this has been real classy. We do appreciate all the Patreon support out there.
I'm sorry we lost about 100 listeners today, Byron. My bad.
No, it's good. Actually, Gary, that's an interesting change of topic. We every month we grow a little bit with the podcast and the downloads and that sort of thing. And I mentioned it, I think, last week that we had a really good week. This month was an amazing month for the podcast and the growth. And I really just think that people are telling their friends. We're asking, hey, would you please tell your training partners, your friends that are interested in jiu-jitsu about us? And I think people are doing that, and that's helping grow it. We're not doing some huge social media campaign. We're not doing anything that we haven't been doing before, which isn't anything crazy. But I think people are trying to share us a little bit with their friends and that sort of thing, and that means a lot to us, and it's really helped us out a lot.
So definitely tell all your friends about us. And like I said, if you do have any ideas for the show, or even a training partner, your instructor that you think would be a great guest, let us know. BJJBrick@gmail.com.
There we go. Gary and I are located in Wichita, Kansas, which is in the United States, kind of in the middle. If you're traveling through, hit us up with our email, and we'll be happy to get some mat time with you if it's at all possible. And just a heads up, we have ran out of our Portuguese-speaking segments with our friend Claudio. So if you were enjoying those are still on YouTube. They'll be there, as long as YouTube keeps them there, which I imagine will be a very long time. But if you're going to go travel to Brazil, or you want to learn pick up a few words here and there in Portuguese, that's going to be a great resource. Check out the YouTube channel for further information on that.
Yep, and we appreciate Claudio coming on for those segments, and it's been we've got a lot of great reviews about it. So thank you so much, Claudio.
Yep, really appreciate his input, his knowledge, his teaching, and his delightful play-hardness with helping me struggle through it.
Yep, he's just all around good guy. He's a triple threat.
Oh man, because he will strangle.
I had to throw that word in again.
All right, Gary. Well, it's been a blast, and next week, like I said, we have Ken Blackburn and more good times in general. But we also have a great. It's not a quote from Travis Stevens. He kind of gives us something that he reads to himself that he wrote. That's very personal and kind of like a motivating statement that he has, and he'll read that to us instead of our quote of the week next week. So you're not going to read this to yourself every day, but maybe it would be smart to make one of your own. So check that out. That'll be next week for the quote of the week.
Yeah, definitely tune in next week. Like I said, we always have chokes and jokes, or strangulations and triangulations. So check us out.
As always, stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to shower.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.